Wondering how your mindset affects your life? How to bring more energy into your business and life? Millions of people around the world ask these same questions daily. You are in the right place. Learn practices that will help give your life the meaning and success you've been searching for. Welcome to the Charge Podcast, teaching you how to create habits around real goals every day. Practical life advice from those who made it. Here's your host, Gary Wilbers.
Welcome, Chargers. We're glad to have you back again this week for another great guest. I love bringing you guests with different viewpoints. And today we've got an entrepreneur that's been in the business over 40 some years. And we're going to learn from his experience, his expertise, but also some of those challenges along the way. Aaron Walker has founded more than a dozen companies over the past 42 years, and he's appeared on more than 2,000 podcast interviews. He attributes much of his success to having surrounded himself with his mastermind counterparts. Aaron spent the decade meeting weekly with Dave Ramsey, Dan Miller, Ken Abraham, and 5 other amazing entrepreneurs. Aaron is the founder of Iron Sharpens Iron Mastermind that now hosts 20 groups with national and international members. Aaron is the author of View from the Top, a must-read to fully understand how to live a life of success and significance. Also the founder of the Mastermind Playbook, an incredible resource for starting, running, and scaling masterminds. Aaron lives in Nashville, Tennessee with his wife, Robin, of 40 years, and he has 2 incredible daughters and 5 beautiful grandchildren. Aaron, it is an honor to have you on the Charge Podcast. Welcome.
Hey, Gary, thanks for having me, buddy. I've been really looking forward to this, and it's just an honor to be with you today.
Well, I know you have lots of experience, lots of challenges that you went through in those 42 years of being an entrepreneur. But why don't you start really kind of where your story starts? We shared what you're doing now, but share with us what you think is most important for people to hear about your story, Aaron.
Gary, I'll go way back and I'll take you to my first business. I was 18 years old when I started my first business. I had worked for a retail outlet for about 5 years. I started there when I was 13. When I was 18, I met a couple of guys that had a lot of money because I didn't have any. And I needed somebody to kind of help fund the new venture. And so we started our own business, got married a year later. I waited on my girlfriend at the time to get out of high school. 2 weeks later, we got married. And I said, listen, Robin, we can't screw this up. We may never get an opportunity again to get an opportunity like this because both of us were broke as a convict. You know, we didn't have any money. And we started our first business. We poured all the money back into the business and God just really blessed it. And we paid a 10-year loan off in 36 months. Wow. And so I repeated that 4 times until we had 4 different retail outlets. And then a Fortune 500 out of Fort Worth, Texas approached me one day and they offered the magic number. And I said, hey, I got to go. So I sold out and I retired at 27 years old. And I thought, man, this is the American dream. I go from no money to being able to retire at 27. And Gary, that was nice for about 18 months. And then I started getting in the bed in the middle of the day. I gained 50 pounds in 18 months. Robin woke me up from a nap one day and she said, this is not what I signed up for. And she said, you got to get a job. You got to start another business or something. So I went back, bought the company that I worked for as a teenager. And we spent the next 10 years quadrupling that business. It was just amazing what we did with it because I had the time and the resources at that point. And so, Gary, where my life really took a twist was August 1st, 2001. This coming August, it will be 20 years. I was headed to the office. Things were good. I was working 3 days a week. My partner was working the other 3 days a week. I had a beautiful home. We had the vacation home. We had all the toys. I mean, life was good, I thought, until a guy named Enrique started to cross the street in front of me to catch a bus in our city about a mile from my office. And Gary, he didn't look my way. And I ran over and killed a pedestrian that day. And my life has never been the same since. And I won't take you through that whole story, but it was a very trying time. in my life. I couldn't handle the stress, quite honestly. I had people around me and coaches, and I had people that were trying to help me work through that. And I ultimately ended up selling the business, and I took 5 years off. I didn't do anything for the next 5 years. We built a new house. We kind of traveled in a bunch of different places just to kind of get my feet back under me. And finally I did. And 5 years later, Robin woke me up from a nap again. She said, "You're getting fat and lazy again. It's time for you to go back to work." And so we did. We bought into a construction company and grew that very successfully over the next 5 or 6 years. And then for the third and final time, 10 years ago, I retired when I turned 50. And the guy you mentioned earlier in the bio, Dave Ramsey and Dan Miller, said, "What are you going to do now?" And I said, "Nothing. I'm going to go down to St. John in the Caribbean, and I'm going to rock myself into an oblivion." And they said, "Man, you can't do that. You're too young. You and Robin have been married 30 years at the time, and you've owned 12 successful companies. You need to teach and coach, and you need to encourage others." And I said, "I don't want any part of that." And they said, "No, you really need to do that." Well, Gary, I'm Christian by faith, and so Christians pray about everything. So I said, "Robin, let's pray about this and see where the Lord might lead." And we did, and I started coaching and fell in love with it. It was just absolutely one of the most enjoyable personal things that I could have ever done. And started doing podcast interviews, and John Lee Dumas, Entrepreneur on Fire, was my first podcast. And after the end of that, I had 15 one-on-one clients from all over the world, started coaching them and kept doing interviews, and people kept coming. And I'm like, "Man, what am I going to do with all these people?" And I said, "I've been in a mastermind my whole life, practically. I know how to run masterminds." So I started Iron Sharpens Iron Mastermind. And here we turn around in 7 years, and we have 20 mastermind groups. We have people from 9 different countries participating, and I'm living the dream. I'm just helping people accomplish their goals and dreams each and every day. And we've learned a process to scale masterminds. And now I've got thought leaders all over the world hiring me to coach them, to teach them, and show them how to start, grow, and scale masterminds. And so we're getting to live the dream each and every day, teaching other people how to be successful and significant.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that story. I mean, that opened up so many different questions that I could ask and want to ask, and we will ask some of those. But I guess I'll go back to the first one that popped up to me as you were sharing about as you created those successful businesses. What would you break down as some of your keys to creating that success? Because it doesn't just happen. It happens because of purpose. And then you've repeated that multiple times. So I'd say there's a formula that you've kind of decided for yourself that's worked for you. What do you think that formula was?
Yeah, well, some of it is transferable into many businesses, obviously. The first one is relationships matter most. Mm. And I think that we've got to really focus on the person. And I tell people all the time, quit trying to make the sale and try to add value. If you'll really focus first and foremost on relationships matter most, people know I care about them. They know I'm going to take care of them. I'm a man of my word. I'm a man of character and integrity. And I think we've got to stand behind everything that we do and say. The next thing is I think you have to make it amazing. That doesn't mean it has to be the best, but it has to be the most amazing. You know how to make it. Excuse me. So I think we've got to do everything that we do with excellence. And it doesn't matter what it is, because I'm a firm believer in the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And I just simply say that I want to go for it. I don't want to step over dollars, picking up dimes. I want to make it as good as I can. Sometimes that costs money. Sometimes it costs time. And I just want us to take time and make it amazing. The third thing is for me is no excuses. I hate excuses. It's like, hey, let's just get it done, right? I mean, if we're going to do the heavy lifting, we're going to make it amazing. Relationships matter most. We've got to set aside every excuse. Really, the next thing for me is everything is figure outable. And I think that if you want to do it, you're going to figure out a way. And then lastly, for me and everything that we do, it goes back a little bit to my faith, and that's truth before opinion. I think that we've got to establish a bedrock of truth. For me, it's God's word. It's the Bible, because I'm Christian. And that is where I draw a line in the sand. And I say all of my decisions are based on truth. And we've got to have that established for us before there's an opinion. And so just simply, I'll recount those, it's just make relationships matter first, make it amazing. No excuses. Everything's figure outable, and truth before opinion. Just establish a bedrock by which you're willing to build the foundational principles of your business.
I think that's great advice. I appreciate you sharing that, because someone today that's listening needs to hear that, because maybe they're struggling in one of those areas, and allows them to really think about what is not working for them. Now they can really decide what will work for them. The other thing I thought, Aaron, that really out of your story that came to me, and I'm a true believer in this, behind every great man is even a better woman that helps us. And she several times told you it's time to change, time to get back on the horse, make that happen. And I feel very fortunate, because my spouse was very impactful in my business and my relationships that I had, and what allowed me to really create some of that success and significance that we want in our life. Can you kind of share with us that key component of how important that has been for you on this journey?
Yeah, no question about it. Rob and I were high school sweethearts. We started dating early. She was at my rivalry high school. She was at Goodlettsville. I was at Madison. And we met on just, we were up at a local restaurant, and we met, started talking and started dating. And 2 weeks out of high school, we got married. And Robin has been my biggest advocate. No question about it. She's always stayed at home, always taken care of our children. We decided early on that we wanted to live on one income, and I wanted her to be at home. She doesn't know a lot about business, because she never was involved in business, but she was always there to give me those words of encouragement. She was always there to push me on. She was always there when things were difficult, to be my biggest cheerleader. And so we celebrate 41 years of marriage this coming June. This is 2021 when we're recording this. And so it's just been outstanding. Now, don't hear me wrong. We've had plenty of challenges. And anybody that's been married 4 decades are going to have ebbs and flows, right? We're going to have valleys, and we're going to have mountaintops. The thing for us, there again, I reference my faith quite a bit, simply because I'm Christian, and that's primary in my life. And the common denominator has been our faith. And so that's been a place that we've been really able to focus on. Even when we reached a fork in the road, or we had challenges in our marriage, we could always circle back to our faith. Robin and I both really are servants at heart towards each other. It's not about being selfish. It's about being a good servant. And that is really looking out for the other one's benefit and their welfare more than you do your own. And when you do that, that natural reciprocity is that your spouse is going to want to serve you well. Now, unfortunately, Gary, and you know well as I do, many, many people out there today don't have that relationship. They don't have that advocate in their spouse. And I would just encourage you that it's never too late to start. If you're listening to me today and you're like, man, I haven't had that, but I would love to have that, you can start today. You can't undo anything in the past, but you can certainly control what happens from here forward.
Yeah, and I think that's the key is Chargers, we can move forward and accomplish that. And one of the things I would share with you is write down, if you don't have that significant other, describe that person that you want. And then we're both men of faith, so we're openly going to talk about that on this podcast, is pray about it then.
Yeah.
Pray for that person to come into your life, because I guarantee if you identify what you want and you want those servant hearts as being your companion, pray about it. And that's going to come at some opportunity. I can't tell you when, but that opportunity will come to you. And that's kind of the third component before we really get into the mastermind side, Aaron. You really spoke about a foundational component has been this faith. And in the world today, as we know it, it's like it either repels people or it attracts them. And it's sad that our society has come to that. For us, it's attracted us because that is our foundation. And to be quite honest, I've been thrown off. I was in business at 1990, but 2006 is when I really felt like I understood how my significant other was part of that. And she was the strong person with the faith side of it. But it was through a faith component that I got that. I went to a men's weekend and kind of opened up the lights, because I was a little bit success. I'm going after that. I'm allowing her to stay home with the children because of the money I'm making, not realizing what a benefit she was doing for our family and our children in the difference that she was making there. So I guess really sharing how that faith component really becomes a foundation or a cornerstone for you as you've moved through life.
Yeah. A lot of people ask me that question, and for me, it's not a part of, it's in its entirety. Because I look at things a little differently. I've been very blessed and fortunate. This is the 14th business I've owned over the past 42 years. And I look at it as I'm a steward over what God has entrusted in me. And I work like it depends on me, and I trust like it depends on the Lord. Because for me and my faith, He is the orchestrator. He is the person that brings the increase. He is the reason. And it's not something that is a part of my life. It is my life. And for me, they're just inseparable. And we've lived our entire life that way as a believer, stating, hey, I want to bring you glory and honor ultimately. That's what I'm trying to do and attempting to do. And He directs our paths and He directs our steps. And it's through meditation, and it's through prayer, and it's through scripture reading, and it's through garnering the consensus of the multitudes, the people, as Jim Rohn says, we're the average of the people we spend the most time with. And that's true. And so I want to position myself around people that have like-mindedness. I want to position myself with people that have similar core values. Because if our core values don't align, we're going to get conflicting ideas on how to do things. And so for me, that's the reason the very last principle that I spoke about earlier is truth before opinion. If you don't have something by which you can establish truth, then everything is subjective. And for me, the principle of following my faith and putting my confidence in Christ allows me to make decisions to run my life and to run our business. And so I think it's just all encompassing.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Aaron. We could do a mic drop right now, but we're not going to, because we know you've got a lot more to share with us. And it's kind of interesting because those things come up. I wrote a book last fall and I released it, and I had these 10 actions, the faithful living, that I called it was cultivate positive culture. But number 10 was realizing that I am a person of faith, and I believe all my talents and gifts come from my God. And when we know that, then that changes things, because we're not that successful person. God's given us these gifts to be able to share with others. And I think that's really kind of sets in with the mastermind that you're doing now. You found the gift that you have of connecting others, making iron sharpen iron. And I think I know why that came, because there's a Bible term. I can't tell you the exact place that it is.
27:17.
Okay. I knew you would know, and I knew it was a Proverbs one, but I couldn't think of which chapter it was, because I've read that myself, and I have it in my Bible is one that I look at. So with masterminds, what do you think is one of the keys that business owners get out of it? What have you've gotten out of it in the past, because you've been with a mastermind group, but now that you're leading them, what is the big thing you think that a business owner gets out of a mastermind?
Well, yeah, Gary, there's so many things that avail itself in the mastermind groups. First of all, it's perspective. We only have one perspective. Regardless of how hard we try to see things differently, we can only see it one way, because we have one life experience. We have one filter. We were raised by a set of parents, and we can only see it one way. So perspective is really important. We did a construction project at my home recently, and the general contractor and the architect was standing in the front, and it was an addition to our home. And they couldn't make something work. And we looked at it and looked at it. We ended up getting vendors and general contractors, additional people, the subs. Nobody could make this work. And I was like, man, we're smart people. We can figure this out. Well, we couldn't figure it out. 2 weeks later, I was sitting on the patio behind the house, and I was on a coaching call, and I saw it immediately. I went, there it is. There's the fix. And I thought, what happened? What happened is my perspective changed. We were looking at it from the wrong perspective. And I think that happens in our lives each and every day. We're too close to the bottle to read the label. And we can't see our blind spots. Other people see you differently than you see yourself. I promise you. We have superpowers, we have Achilles' heel, but we have blind spots. And oftentimes we need other persons that we trust. We need to subject ourselves to the scrutiny of other people that are very capable and competent, can show us our blind spots, because historically that's what trips us up. There's people that can give you new insights, right? They have perspectives, they have new insights. There's people that can hold you accountable. In some area of your life, you need to be held accountable. Well, you wouldn't just do that with anybody. You want to have people that you trust their judgment. The mastermind can help you in so many ways related to getting clarity, gaining focus, eliminating isolation, because isolation is the enemy to excellence. And if you really want to take your life to the next level, God designed us to be in community. And in community, there's different parts to the body that operate differently. There's people that can give you encouragement. They can edify you. They can hold you accountable. They can lift you up. You can borrow their confidence and their courage when you're lacking. It's just a situation to where everything about it is instrumental in your success. None of us succeed alone. None of us. And none of us are a self-made person. We need people around us to do all of these things that I've just mentioned. And I don't know how better to do that than being in a mastermind.
Yeah, I agree so heartily. I was in masterminds early in my career. It made a real difference because, just the one concept that comes up and that you can implement in your business. And like you said, those perspectives that you're seeing, different perspectives out there each and every time. One thing I think is important in masterminds, and I know you believe in this too, is that you have to be vulnerable and authentic to really get the most out of a mastermind. Share with me your philosophy there.
Well, Gary, let's just hypothetically say, let's role play for a second. Let's just say that you and Mrs. Wilbers is having a disagreement about something, and it could be whatever. Leave it up to your imagination. You come to the mastermind group and you say, she's not wanting to go along with this, but you don't share all the facts, right? You don't share you being condescending and arrogant and egotistical and prideful. You don't share those things. And I don't really have a way of knowing that unless you share those things. Well, I can't give you good advice if I really don't know all the factual information. You're not going to give me all the factual information if we've got an arm's length relationship. If you really don't know me that well, it's hard for me to give you blanket suggestions or recommendations because I don't have all the facts. But when you're in a mastermind group and I know you week in and week out, and I watch your propensity, I see what is interesting to you. I see what your interests are in accomplishing. I know what your ambitions are, your aspirations, your goals. I understand your children. I understand historical events in your life. I know what your strengths are. I know what your superpowers are. I know what your blind spots are. All of a sudden, I'm able to give you good advice, right? That's the benefit of long-term masterminds. I go to a guy named Floyd Dawson here in Nashville, and I've been seeing Floyd for over 20 years. Floyd did a study on me. He put together kind of a spreadsheet, and he said, there's something interesting. I see a pattern in your life. I go to Floyd when things are bad, when me and Robin can't resolve a difference. Robin goes to him. We go alone. We go together. I go when things are bad. I go when things are good, right? He's a force in my life that is a good place for me to just bounce ideas off of, make sure I'm not missing anything. He's a wonderful counselor, but he saw something, and he said, every 36 months, you do something radical. And I said, what do you mean? He said, you sell a business, you buy another one, you buy a piece of property, you sell one, you start a business. He said, every 36 months, he said, you know what that tells me? You're a creator developer. You're not a maintainer manager. Like when you get bored with it, you're done. Yep. That's why you've owned 14 businesses over 42 years. And he told Robin something very interesting. He said, Robin, this is very good for you to know as his wife, because he doesn't like the same thing all the time. You're going to bore him. if you always act and behave and do the same things all the time, whether that be in your emotional relationship, whether it be in your physical relationship, it doesn't matter. I like things different, right? And so he said, that's going to be healthy for your marriage. I wouldn't have known that had I not had a different insight, had I not had a different perspective, right? And so it's the same thing in the mastermind. We just don't know these things. We don't know what we don't know. And that's why that it is so important to subject yourself to the scrutiny of people where their core values and their mission statements align and they have the same values as you. And when that happens, it eliminates a lot of landmines in our lives.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, because I think that's so important that we understand why are we doing it. And for some, I know we've got some listeners that's listening today. They've heard of masterminds, but they've never moved forward to join a mastermind. So can you share with us what you believe is why are masterminds worth the investment?
Yeah, for a number of the reasons that we've already kind of touched on, but a lot of people say, it costs a lot of money and there's an expense, and it's not an expense from my perspective. It is an investment. It is something long-term. And then you have to ask yourself, what is it worth to teach me to be a better husband, to be a better dad, to be a better business person? What is it worth to be in a format where the networking is unbelievable? What is it worth to get a huge amount of an accountability on a regular basis? What is it worth for somebody to make sure the task that I should be doing each and every day that I'm accomplishing? I'm not procrastinating. I'm not kicking the can down the road. I'm doing what I say that I'm going to do. What is it worth for me to have a safe place to check things that could be a moral issue and maybe I'm not familiar with making the best decision? What is my character worth? What is the integrity worth? I need people to bounce ideas off of. If I want to do a beta test and really break down what it is that I'm trying to accomplish, who are people I trust enough to share all the secrets? Who can I be vulnerable and authentic with? And you start thinking about those things and you're like, man, this is encompassing my whole life. This is personal development. This is professional development. This is spiritual development. It's a very minor cost to pay in order for us to level up in all those areas.
Yeah. And what a lesson today we've been able to share, because we've not just talked about being an entrepreneur. Both of us are entrepreneurs and have been all of our life. But what we've really talked about is some of those core components. If you have that foundational base, how you're going to really kind of grow yourself, and that becomes the real key. You've talked about it quite a bit, Aaron, about relationships. It's not just the business relationships. It's the personal relationships. It's your spouse. It's your family. How are you incorporating those all in your life? And that's why I really wanted to get you on the podcast, because we have similar philosophies of really understanding the whole person. When someone comes to me, if they want to do coaching, I won't take the client if they say, well, I just want to work on this business, this part here, because it all comes together. And when we realize that, then that's what makes the difference. Is there anything
I was going to comment on that.
Sure.
Years ago, I was all about making another $50,000 or $100,000 and starting another business. And I don't want to ever discourage anyone from doing that, because I love to make money. I want you to make money. I want others, because I like a nice house and a car and take a vacation. I love to give money away. I love to help people. And broke people can't help people financially. And so It's a good thing, right? And we need to make money. I just don't want money to be my God. I don't want it to be my motivating factor. It'll come. If you try to add value, the money will come as a result of that. But here's what happens when you solely focus on success is you come home one day with a pocket full of money to a house full of strangers.
Yeah.
And then you find out that you have all this great success at the expense of your family. And at the end of the day, if that happens, you still go home a loser. And what's going to happen is you're going to be a rich old guy with no relationships, and you're going to be alone, and it didn't do you any good to begin with. So we need to really prioritize our priorities. We need to focus on the things that really matter and put them in the proper perspective.
Yeah, it's so interesting you say that. I have a ring. You can see it on the side here, and you probably can't see it, but I have mountains on it. My company name is Ascend Business Strategies. Well, the ascend comes from because you don't want to ascend to the top by yourself. It's
No.
pretty lonely if you get to the top and
Sure.
you've left everybody down below at the bottom of the mountain, because it means they're not with you. So people that were significant from you, they left you because all you were doing is going for that success. Really in life, it's about who can I bring to the mountain with me? And
That's the reason the book that I wrote, View from the Top, the tagline is how to live a successful and significant life.
Yep. I love that. Well, I think we could go on for several hours, but because of time constraints, we're going to jump into the recharge round, just because I know that our chargers are either exercising right now, cutting the lawn, or doing some activity as they're listening to this great information. But I have 3 questions that I'd like to ask you, that I like to ask every guest. And the first one is charge. It's my mantra, and what the podcast name is. It's create habits around real goals every day. What habit do you think's led to your success in life?
Oh, no question about my level of consistency. I'm very consistent at everything I do, but for decades now, the first hour and a half to 2 hours of every day is spent in meditation, prayer, scripture reading, scripture memorization, praise and worship, just a time to be silent, just to be quiet. And I do that without fail 5 days a week.
Yeah. My chargers probably think I set every guest up that, but it's amazing. It is one of the core components that comes out of this question, probably more than 60 to 70% of the time when I ask that question, is finding that morning time for yourself, because it's the only time you can protect. You can tell yourself, I'm going to do it at the end of the day. Well, if something else is going on or you're tired, you're not going to do it. And I'm telling you, chargers, that's one. It's still 2021. You can make this happen. It may not be an hour and a half for you. Start with 15 minutes, but find that time. You'll grow that time once you get into it as you move forward. What's one simple positive action you take each day to move forward towards your goals?
Yeah, we're very goal oriented, and we follow Brian Moran's 12-week year, to where we're focusing on the task in order to accomplish that goal. We do a process called Come As You Will Be in 2023, to where I know in 5 key areas of my life the tasks that I need to do in order to accomplish my aspirational goal. And each and every day we are moving the ball forward, because we're an inch wide and a mile deep. We're focused on what we want, and we don't allow the shiny objects to get in the way. We clearly identify what we want and we go for it.
Excellent. Share your biggest life lesson. What did you learn from it?
You know, unfortunately, it was the accident. I wrote about it in the book in chapter 6. It's titled Blindsided. And we all have the opportunity to be blindsided at any moment. And I just encourage people to live every day literally like it's your last, because it could be. And so I just want to encourage people to focus on the things that matter and do the things that are going to move the needle, because today may be it.
Excellent. Excellent advice. Aaron, I can't thank you enough for saying yes to be on the Charge podcast. Some great information. Please share with them if they want to reach out and check you out, and also the book, how they could get a copy of it. And then we'll have it all in show notes also for them.
Well, thank you, Gary. I appreciate that. I've really enjoyed being with you today. You're a very warm and inviting podcast host. And so thank you. You've made me feel very welcome today. If you want to reach out and find out more about me and what we're doing at View from the Top or Iron Sharpens Iron Mastermind, reach out to viewfromthetop.com. And if you're interested in starting your own mastermind, we have created an amazing tool called the Mastermind Playbook. And you can find that at themastermindplaybook.com.
Well, I'm going to check it out myself. As you know, I have a mastermind, but I'm sure there's some things I can learn, and always love learning from others. And I will check out your book also. And I hope our chargers, you go check those out, because Aaron's given you his wisdom. He's sharing it with us today openly, because he's wanting to make each one of you better. And I would have a feeling that if I know him well enough, then I'm probably saying that he prayed for us this morning as he was coming onto the podcast, and knowing what could he share with someone that wants what they needed. And there's someone on here today that's listened to this podcast that you're able to take that now and put that into action. And that's really where we will feel the best, is when you take something and then you put that into action each and every day. Remember, as a charger, it's about creating habits around real goals every day. Go out each day and charge each and every day. Make it a great day, and we'll see you back here next week. Thanks for joining me, Chargers.
This podcast is ended, but your life doesn't just stop. To continue your inspiring journey, head over to chargepodcast.com and access all the tools and resources mentioned on today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, consider sharing with somebody who may also benefit from the advice provided. That's chargepodcast.com. Until next time, charge in business and life.